Okay, so you want to own a cruise ship. You picture a white vessel leaving Miami at sunset, with thousands of passengers waving from the upper decks. Every cabin is sold. The restaurants are full. The casino is open. The bars are pouring drinks, and every passenger has already paid before the ship leaves the dock. From the outside, it looks like a floating hotel that prints money 7 days at a time, and the demand appears to support that dream. The global cruise industry expected to carry 37.7 million ocean-going passengers in 2025, using a fleet of roughly 310 ships. Royal Caribbean alone carried more than 9.4 million passengers during the year and reported a load factor close to 110%. That does not mean people were sleeping in hallways. Cruise occupancy is measured against 2 passengers per cabin, so a number above 100% means families and groups are filling third and fourth berths. The ships are not merely full. Many are fuller than the capacity number printed in the brochure. But here is the part that changes the picture. Royal Caribbean had approximately $11.3 billion of ships on order at the end of 2025. Carnival generated more than $26 billion of revenue that year, yet still recorded billions in depreciation and more than $1 billion of interest expense. A cruise ship can produce hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. It can also become a billion-dollar machine whose cabins expire every night, whose engines keep burning fuel, and whose debt does not care whether passengers arrive. So the question is not whether cruise ships can generate money. They clearly can. The question is how much of that money survives after the vessel, crew, food, fuel, ports, commissions, maintenance, marketing, and financing take their share. By the end of this, you will understand where cruise profits actually come from, why a full ship can still disappoint its owner, and what separates a floating resort from a floating liability. The first thing to understand is that owning a cruise ship is not the same as owning a cruise line. A ship can be owned directly by the company whose name appears on the funnel. It can also be held by a separate financing entity and leased or chartered to an operator. The brand may control marketing, reservations, entertainment, food standards, loyalty programs, and itinerary design. Outside concessionaires may operate shops, spas, casinos, photography, or selected services in exchange for fees or a share of revenue. Passengers see one vacation product. Behind it sits a chain of owners, lenders, managers, suppliers, ports, travel advisors, and contractors. A single ship without that system is not automatically a cruise business. It is an extremely expensive vessel searching for passengers. Now consider the entry cost. Modern cruise ships are built by a small number of specialized shipyards capable of producing large passenger vessels. The contract is signed years before delivery. Payments are made as construction milestones are reached. The ship may be priced in euros, even when the cruise line earns much of its revenue in dollars. That creates currency risk before the vessel carries a single passenger. Royal Caribbean disclosed that approximately 64% of the cost of its ships under construction was exposed to changes in the euro at the end of 2025. A 10% strengthening of that currency could have increased the dollar cost of the exposed contracts by hundreds of millions. Large operators rarely pay the entire amount in cash. Export credit agencies, banks, bonds, and secured loans help finance construction. Royal Caribbean said committed financing covered roughly 80% of the cost of 5 ocean ships on order for its global brands. That reduces the initial equity requirement. It does not reduce the economic weight of the ship. The vessel arrives with debt, interest, depreciation, and an expectation that it will operate for decades. Carnival historically estimated useful lives of around 30 years for its ships, with residual value assumptions applied at the end. That accounting life shows why every design decision matters. A poorly positioned restaurant, inefficient engine, undersized casino, or unpopular cabin mix can affect earnings across hundreds of future sailings. The ship is not simply built. It is locked into a business model. Before the first cruise, the vessel must also become legally operable. Passenger ships on international voyages are governed by safety, training, environmental, and security requirements. The operator deals with a flag state, classification societies, port state inspections, insurance requirements, and international conventions. SALAS governs core safety standards. MARPL addresses pollution prevention, including sewage and garbage. SDSW establishes training and certification standards for seafarers. Classification surveys and statutory dry docks confirm that the vessel remains fit to operate. A hotel can close one floor for renovation. A ship entering dry dock may remove thousands of cabins from sale at once. The maintenance bill is only part of the cost. The missing passenger days can be even larger. Now consider the itinerary. A cruise ship does not earn money because it can float. It earns money because passengers want the route attached to it. The home port needs air access, hotels, roads, terminals, parking, baggage handling, fuel, food provisioning, and enough local demand. The ports of call need available berths and experiences passengers consider worth visiting. The schedule must fit distance, sailing speed, fuel consumption, weather, port restrictions, and arrival windows. A beautiful destination that requires too much fuel or an inconvenient overnight sailing may weaken the economics. A valuable itinerary balances desire with operating efficiency. This is why major cruise companies invest in terminals, port facilities, and private destinations. The ship creates the passenger flow. Control of the destination allows the operator to capture more of the spending around that flow. Now look at the first revenue layer, passenger tickets. The ticket pays for the cabin and access to the basic cruise experience. But ticket prices are not fixed. A balcony cabin during a holiday week can sell for several times the price of an interior cabin during a week season. The same room may be repriced repeatedly as the departure date approaches. Cruise inventory is perishable. Once the ship leaves, an empty cabin can never be sold for that sailing again. Revenue managers therefore balance price against occupancy. Holding the price too high can leave cabins empty. Discounting too early can fill the ship with passengers who paid less than necessary. The goal is not simply to sell every cabin. It is to maximize revenue from the entire departure. The second revenue layer is cabin mix. A ship may contain interior rooms, ocean view rooms, balconies, suites, family cabins, and premium neighborhoods with private lounges or restaurants. The hull and engines move every passenger together. The cabin categories allow the operator to charge very different prices for access to the same voyage. Suites can also bring passengers who spend more on dining, beverages, excursions, and retail. This means the most expensive cabins are not only real estate. They help segment the customer base. The third revenue layer begins after the passenger boards. Beverage packages, specialty restaurants, internet access, spa treatments, photographs, retail purchases, games, and premium activities add revenue throughout the sailing. Royal Caribbean reported that onboard and other revenue represented about 30% of total revenue in 2025. Carnival reported an even larger share, about 35%. That makes the ticket only part of the customer value. A low fare can still work if the passenger spends heavily once on board. A full ship filled with customers who buy nothing beyond the included product can produce a very different result. The fourth revenue layer is the casino and concession model. Some services are operated directly. Others are provided by third parties that pay the cruise line a percentage of revenue or another contractual fee. This reduces inventory and staffing requirements for the operator. It can also create high-margin income tied to passenger traffic. The ship supplies the audience. The concessionaire supplies the service. The contract determines how much value stays with the cruise line. The fifth revenue layer is shore excursions. Passengers pay for buses, boats, guides, beaches, wildlife tours, and cultural experiences at ports of call. Local companies may deliver the activity. The cruise line markets it, processes payment, controls access to the customer, and keeps part of the price. Excursions do more than create commission income. They make the itinerary easier to sell and reduce the uncertainty passengers feel in unfamiliar ports. The sixth revenue layer is the destination itself. Private islands and controlled beach clubs allow cruise companies to extend the onboard spending system onto land. The operator can shape food, drinks, premium seating, water attractions, retail, and transportation around the arriving ship. Royal Caribbean operated 3 exclusive private destinations at the end of 2025 and planned a much larger portfolio. That strategy reveals the direction of the business. The strongest operator does not only control the cabin. It tries to control more of the vacation surrounding the cabin. Now examine the costs. The first large category is the cost of acquiring the passenger. Travel advisor commissions, credit card fees, air arrangements, transfers, and passenger-related port expenses can consume a meaningful share of ticket revenue. Royal Caribbean reported commissions, transportation, and related costs equal to more than 13% of total revenue in 2025. The ship can be full before the operator has finished paying everyone who helped fill it. The second category is shipboard labor. A large passenger vessel operates every hour of every day. It needs deck officers, engineers, electricians, cooks, waiters, cleaners, medical staff, security, entertainers, technicians, and hotel managers. Royal Caribbean reported roughly 96,500 shipboard employees across its global brands at the end of 2025. The labor structure is international, regulated, and logistically complex. Crew members need contracts, travel, accommodation, meals, medical support, training, and scheduled rotation. The passenger buys 1 week of vacation. The operator maintains a permanent moving workforce. The third category is food and hotel consumption. Thousands of passengers and crew eat several times a day. Cabins need linens, toiletries, cleaning chemicals, laundry, water, and waste handling. Restaurants must carry enough inventory for the entire sailing. The ship cannot call a nearby warehouse because a buffet ran out of eggs. Overordering creates waste and storage pressure. Underordering creates service failures the customer remembers. The fourth category is fuel. Fuel cost depends on vessel size, speed, route, weather, engine efficiency, and market price. Royal Caribbean reported fuel expense equal to about 6.4% of total revenue in 2025. It also used fuel hedges to reduce price volatility. Even a well-filled ship can lose margin when fuel rises or an itinerary requires faster sailing. Speed is expensive. Every promised port arrival has an energy cost. The fifth category is maintenance. Salt water, vibration, heat, humidity, and constant operation wear down machinery and hotel spaces. Engines, propulsion systems, kitchens, elevators, pools, theaters, air conditioning, plumbing, and thousands of cabins require continuous work. Some repairs happen while passengers are on board. Larger projects require dry dock. A ship that misses one departure does not simply delay revenue. It destroys a week of cabin inventory. The sixth category includes port charges, insurance, entertainment, technology, marketing, administration, and debt. Ports may charge based on passengers, tonnage, capacity, or services used. Insurance must cover an asset operating across multiple jurisdictions with thousands of people on board. Entertainment must remain fresh enough to support the brand promise. Reservation systems, mobile apps, call centers, loyalty programs, and advertising all exist before the passenger sees the ship. Then depreciation and interest arrive. The floating resort is also a long-duration financial instrument. Now build a simplified one-ship model. Assume a modern ship has 4,000 lower berths. At 105% occupancy, it carries an average of 4,200 passengers per sailing. Assume the ship completes 48 7-night cruises during the year. That produces 201,600 passenger bookings. At an average ticket revenue of $1,150 per passenger, annual ticket revenue reaches about $232 million. Assume each passenger spends another $550 on board and through related products. That adds about $111 million. Total annual revenue reaches approximately $343 million. Now subtract the operating machine. Commissions, transportation, card fees, and passenger-related port costs consume about $45 million. Onboard merchandise, excursion, insurance, and concession-related costs require another $19 million. Shipboard payroll and related costs consume roughly $27 million. Food costs about $20 million. Fuel requires approximately $22 million. Repairs, insurance, entertainment, fixed port costs, and other ship operations consume another $43 million. Cruise operating expenses now total roughly $176 million. Marketing, reservations, shoreside management, and administrative support require another $43 million. Depreciation on the vessel consumes approximately $35 million. Interest and financing costs take another $40 million. A further $20 million is set aside as a prudent reserve for major improvements, dry docks, and future replacement needs. The ship is left with roughly $29 million before tax and unusual events. $343 million entered the business. Less than 9% remained in this simplified model. The ship looked like a floating city full of customers. The owner saw a narrow profit supported by thousands of moving parts. Now change one variable. Occupancy falls from 105% to 90%. Average passengers per sailing decline from 4,200 to 3,600. Across 48 departures, the ship loses 28,800 passenger bookings. At $1,700 of combined ticket and onboard revenue per passenger, almost $49 million disappears. Some food, commissions, and onboard costs fall with the passenger count. Fuel, crew, debt, depreciation, insurance, and much of the entertainment budget do not. Even after variable savings, the original profit can vanish. The ship is still sailing. The theater still opens. The engines still run. There are simply too many empty beds absorbing fixed cost. Now changes second variable. A propulsion problem forces the ship to miss 2 7-night sailings. At the original revenue level, each departure produces more than $7 million. 2 cancellations remove over $14 million of revenue before refunds, repair costs, guest compensation, and repositioning. Many annual costs remain almost unchanged. A mechanical failure lasting 14 days can damage a profit built across the other 51 weeks. That is the danger of owning one extremely productive asset. When it works, every deck earns. When it stops, the entire business stops with it. Several financial traps now become visible. A full ship is not automatically a profitable ship if fares were discounted too aggressively. High-ticket revenue is not enough if onboard spending remains weak. A newer vessel may consume less fuel and attract higher prices, but it also carries larger depreciation and financing obligations. Customer deposits create cash before the sailing, but they remain obligations until the vacation is delivered. An older ship may appear cheap, yet require more maintenance and command weaker pricing. A cruise company, therefore, cannot judge a vessel only by purchase price or occupancy. It must measure revenue per passenger day, onboard spending, fuel efficiency, itinerary value, maintenance downtime, and capital cost together. Now look at a failure case, Pool Manor. Before 2020, the Spanish cruise operator had been working through a turnaround and operated ships chartered from Royal Caribbean. Then global cruise operations stopped. Ticket revenue disappeared while ships, employees, refunds, financing obligations, and corporate costs remained. Pool Manor filed for reorganization under Spanish insolvency law in June 2020. Royal Caribbean terminated the charters of 3 ships and sold them to third parties. It recorded substantial impairment charges connected to those vessels and additional costs related to refunds and the reorganization. This was an extraordinary industry shutdown, but exposed the purest form of cruise ship risk. The ships had not stopped being large, complex, and expensive. They had stopped producing passenger days. A cabin without a sailing had no inventory value. A theater without guests had no audience. A ship designed to earn from constant movement became an asset waiting for a buyer. That is what failure can look like in this industry. The vessel still floats. The business around it disappears. Now compare that with Royal Caribbean's stronger model. At the end of 2025, its global and partner brands operated 69 ships with roughly 180,000 berths. The company carried more than 9.4 million passengers and reported occupancy near 110%. It generated $17.9 billion of revenue, with about 30% coming from onboard and other sources. The strength did not come from one ship alone. It came from brands, distribution, loyalty, pricing systems, itinerary planning, fleet scale, and destination control. A passenger can move from one ship to another without leaving the ecosystem. A private destination can receive multiple vessels. Marketing costs, technology, procurement, and customer data can be spread across the fleet. Scale also supports specialized teams for fuel purchasing, regulation, shipbuilding, entertainment, and revenue management. This does not eliminate risk. It makes each ship part of a larger machine. The weak owner thinks the ship is the attraction. The strong operator builds a brand that can fill the ship repeatedly. The weak owner focuses on ticket price. The strong operator measures total revenue per passenger day. The weak owner sees a port as somewhere to stop. The strong operator sees an itinerary as a design network of demand, fuel, timing, and spending. The weak owner celebrates a full departure. The strong operator asks what those passengers bought after boarding. Same vessel, different business. Now ask what a sophisticated buyer studies before acquiring a cruise ship or cruise operation. The buyer starts with age, engine type, fuel consumption, classification status, and the schedule for the next dry dock. Then comes the cabin mix. Balconies, suites, third and fourth berths, accessible rooms, and crew capacity determine who the ship can carry and what it can charge. The buyer studies historical ticket yield, onboard spending, occupancy, itinerary performance, and travel advisor dependence. It examines port agreements, home port access, environmental equipment, insurance history, crew contracts, and remaining debt. It also asks the hardest question: does the ship have a brand and distribution system capable of filling it? A cheap vessel without demand can be more expensive than a costly vessel with loyal passengers. Ordinary buyers see restaurants, pools, and thousands of cabins. Sophisticated buyers see passenger days, revenue yield, fuel curves, dry dock risk, and a 30-year stream of capital obligations. The future will push this business in three directions. First, cruise companies will keep investing in private destinations and controlled port experiences. That allows them to improve the itinerary while capturing more passenger spending. Second, ships will continue becoming more efficient and more complex. Larger vessels can spread engines, entertainment, and public spaces across more passengers. They also concentrate more capital and more operational risk into one hull. Third, environmental regulation and fuel technology will reshape asset values. Shore power, LNG, biofuel blends, efficiency upgrades, emissions allowances, and future low-carbon fuels require investment. A ship that cannot adapt may lose itinerary flexibility or resale value before its physical life ends. So, can owning a cruise ship make you rich? Yes, but not because the ship is large or because the cabins look expensive. The strong version has a brand people trust, a distribution network that fills departures, and an itinerary passengers want to repeat. It prices cabins dynamically. It earns beyond the ticket through drinks, dining, excursions, retail, entertainment, and controlled destinations. It protects fuel efficiency, maintenance availability, and capital discipline. The weak version buys the vessel first and searches for demand afterward. It discounts cabins to create the appearance of occupancy. It underestimates dry docks, marketing, financing, and the cost of one missed sailing. From ashore, both ships may look identical. The lights glow across the upper decks. Music plays beside the pool. Passengers wave as the vessel leaves port. But one ship belongs to a system that can fill every departure and earn throughout the vacation. The other is a billion-dollar hotel that must find thousands of new customers every week before its inventory expires. The cruise ship is not the business. Filling every sailing, earning from every passenger day, and controlling more of the vacation around it is.